Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the 3/3/2022 City Council meeting. Grateful for you all being here. I'd like to call the meeting to order. And first item of business, if you all will please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you all very much. Next item is consideration of the agenda, and if council has no objection, I would like to move the Rockbridge SPCA report to the first, and then we'll have tourism and Mr. Wilson. Here he comes walking in now. So, any objection to that change? Hearing none, we will adopt the agenda as presented with that modification, and we will jump right into presentations. Tara, welcome. We're glad you're here. Please press the button on there. Red is...
I'm red.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you for inviting me tonight. I'm Tara Rohde from the Rockbridge SPCA, Executive Director. I'm going to talk a little bit about the SPCA and what we do. The shelter is staffed 7 days a week. We are open 6 days a week from 12 to 4, Tuesday through Sunday. We have 7 employees, including myself and our shelter manager. That is down from 2 employees from the start of the pandemic. And with less animals that have come in, we've kept it about that. So hopefully we can keep our employment down to just 7. Last year, 3,761 visitors came to the shelter, with 65 new volunteers, and that is about half of what we normally see. So the pandemic did affect that, I'm pretty sure. We took in 260 dogs, 400 cats, for a total of 3,594 days that we charged to the localities. We also, the staff takes in owner surrender, strays. We take in feral cats, dogs, aggressive dogs, court cases, so anything that comes to the shelter we're taking in. We evaluate the animals, if they need to be dewormed, vaccinated, or any other kind of treatment, or even possibly need to go to the vet. We also make sure they get to the vet as well. We do handle after-hour and middle-of-the-night emergencies sometimes, and our after-hour vet is Dr. Tracy Bell. She's on retainer to help us out if there is a dog hit by a car or any other situation that might happen out there, and that's for all 3 localities. All the animal control officers have access to our shelter 24/7, and all the other officers in the area have a key or know where the key is to go to our drop box that's just outside of the shelter should they need to use that and bring an animal in the middle of the night. Our dogs and cats are fed twice a day by the staff, and they're clean throughout the day. We have volunteers and staff that walk the dogs daily. We have 10 outdoor runs that connect to 10 of our runs inside, so the dogs can get outside on nice days. We have a fully enclosed cat patio, so any volunteers can come and socialize with our cats as well. We took a total of 268 lost dog and cat calls and 146 found dog and cat calls for all 3 localities. So we constantly have people losing their pets, and we try to find them and locate them best we can, especially when they come into the shelter. We'll get them back to their owners. Each locality had less animal days this past year. The city of Lexington went from 269 animals to 115 animals. So you had a pretty good drop there. Our overall budget for the shelter went down about $12,400, and that was because we had less animals in, so we were spending less on food, medication, cleaning, litter, vet bills, but our fixed expenses stayed the same. We provide a monthly low-cost transport for area dogs and cats, and we have a $14,000 grant that we're using to help those that need help spaying and neutering their animals. We have a rabies clinic towards the end of this month, March 21st through the 25th. It's just $6 for a shot for your dog or cat. And last year we added one more day for the rabies clinic because there was some need for it, and we plan to do the same this year. We also created a pet food pantry with for low-income families who need help. And that food is being used from donations that we receive. A lot of times we get food that's already opened, or it's a brand we don't use. Some of the rescues we work with will send back food that might not be something we're going to use. And the reason we don't do that or use that food might be because it has a red dye in it, and it might give our dogs diarrhea, and I won't be able to keep anybody staffed if they come in every morning with the dogs having diarrhea. So we pick through some of the food and decide what's going to go in our pet food pantry. So that is all donated food. It's not food we are buying. We have plenty of events that we do throughout the year. Our Texas Hold'em in February was postponed till next year. We have our annual meeting that we'll have in May. We have our Animal Adventure Camp, which is June 20th through the 24th, and we already have 20 campers signed up for that. Our golf tournament is in July. We have an Art for ARF in September. Luminaries is in November, and our Christmas open house is December, and we also participate in the Christmas parade each year too. We do a lot of work with rescues, and the rescues are from out of the area, out of the state. It just depends. We had 120 dogs and cats that got adopted from our area, and 373 dogs and cats went to rescues outside of our area. So that will show you how much we're relying on rescues to help us at the SPCA. We do have people come from outside of the area to adopt as well. Our save rate for dogs is 94%, and our save rate for cats is 85%. We can house at full capacity 95 cats and 41 dogs. Right now we have 3 cats and 19 dogs. So with all that, I hope with the budget cut in half at $7,748, you think the SPCA is a really good deal for the city.
Unequivocally a great deal. Do members of council have any questions for Tara?
I'm not familiar with the Animal Adventure Camp. Can you describe that a little bit?
It is a week-long camp. It goes from 9 to 1 o'clock in the afternoon, Monday through Friday, age 5 to 12. And we have all different kinds of things come in, and people bring animals from their farm. We have horses and giant turtles, pigs, you name it. We get as many different things that we can get in for people to learn, or the kids to learn about. And then we also do crafts and activities as well.
One other question. I know it's very difficult to, in a shelter where you have to accept every animal that comes to you. The save rates look very good, I think. Is that on par with previous years, or have you noticed a trend?
The dogs usually stay the same from each year, but our cats are better for this past year. And that is because of all the work we do. Our shelter manager's connection with over 100 rescues that we talk to and use throughout the region.
And Tara, can you speak briefly, and you may have mentioned, and I missed it, but volunteers, my perception is between the universities and
the schools.
Yeah, Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts and things of that nature.
We have everybody, Washington and Lee has a lot of different groups that come to us and volunteer for the day. Usually it's a big group of kids, and we try to find a project for them to do. Same with VMI. And then local high school kids come. We even have parents and their children come and volunteer, so it's open for any and everybody. We'll find something for them to do.
Terrific. And if somebody wanted to tour the SPCA, just give you a call, and
they
tours are available most any time.
We are open, no appointment necessary, so they can come in right now and take a look at everything, sign up to be a volunteer, and if they want to tour around the property, they most definitely can do that. We will have some construction going on with our 2 new kennels that we're going to be putting by our driveway, so that'll be a nice thing added for dogs to get outside.
Terrific. And the bargain payment that you mentioned of $7,000+ is fantastic. So thank you very, very much. Our ambition is to support the SPCA in your endeavors, and we really appreciate you keeping connected with us and letting us know the great work that you're doing in our community.
Well, thank you. Appreciate
Jim,
it.
did you have?
I comment because last fall I was out enjoying a nice evening with my family after dark, heard something rustling in the landscaping, and I looked and there was a ferret there.
No.
And I didn't call anybody at the time, and I thought of picking it up, but I thought if it had rabies, I didn't really want to do that. So I left it and felt really guilty. It eventually wandered off, a very tame animal. We were just a few feet away, and it just was looking at us. And, so what do you do with exotic animals if you see them as a citizen, and do you take them?
Well, call animal control, and that's the thing. With the city, I know I've asked you too, Jim, about your animal control situation. Definitely, you don't want to pick up an animal that could bite you. We did have a positive rabies cat case last summer. So definitely call your local law enforcement or animal control to pick that up. That ferret is a domestic animal, so it cannot survive out in this element, so it definitely needs to have attention brought to it. But yeah, you just need to call your local law enforcement. There should be somebody be able to pick them up throughout the night.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And all animals bite.
All
Two-legged or
any animals
four-legged?
with teeth will bite, so
Indeed.
just keep that in mind.
Indeed. Again, thank you so much for being with us.
All right.
Please take our appreciation back to your staff and your board
Thank you.
for the work that they
I
do.
will.
I know they're highly compensated, your board members, and the work that they do is very, very meaningful for our
Will
community.
do. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I had
Thank you.
I'm sorry?
a couple questions. You mentioned rabies clinics. How many are those? How many are you doing a year now? And spay neuter clinics?
We do
does-
just the one full week a year. It's always
For
in
rabies?
March for a rabies shot.
Okay.
And then the second one we did last year was in November, so we'll probably do it again in November.
Okay.
It was a Sunday, a one-day deal. Most of all the vets have something that they do, but it's different. You kind of have to call them to find out when their rabies clinic is.
And spay and neuter clinics, how
Our
often are
spay and
those
neuter
on?
clinics are every month.
Okay, thank you.
We have one
That's
every month.
Good deal, thank you.
Yeah.
Almost missed an opportunity. I'm not sure if you're aware, but I think today is If Pets Had Thumbs Day. And it's worth noting with your SPCA report in our resources that this day should be recognized for all animals, especially if they had thumbs.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us, and feel free to go home and enjoy your family and the beautiful
Will
evening.
do. Thank you for inviting me today. Good night.
Next presentation, I'd like to call on Jean Clark for the Rockbridge Regional Tourism Report. Welcome, Jean.
Well, thank you.
I know it's been a while since you've been in middle school. And I'm glad to welcome you back, even though you didn't come to Liburn down there.
Is there an underlying message there?
Not at all. Just a warm welcome. I will ask you to pull that microphone down because we want to be sure to hear what you have to say.
Okay, thank you, thank you. Thanks for having me tonight. It has been a while since I've been in this school. I'm in your other school more frequently, as I have a kindergartner there, and I think, Marilyn, maybe our grandkids are in the same class even, so I think so. Yeah. I don't know that yours terrorizes the teacher as much as mine does, but anyway, it's fun stories.
There's two of them there then.
So, thank y'all for having me tonight. Knew that Mr. Wilson was going to follow me up, and he's so eloquent and always has such flowery language. And, I'm just bare bones kind of person. So actually, Janie, at each of your places gave you each our top 10 accomplishments in 2021, as well as our annual report following that. And just to hit some of the highlights from that, one of the mentions is the USA BMX group that we worked throughout the year to make sure that we could have them back. We missed a year during the pandemic. They were actually here at the end of January, and some of the most fascinating numbers come from some of their economic impact stats. They had over 1,100 athletes from 39 states, and total room nights were total 3-day attendance was over 14,000 folks. So about 3,200 room nights. That's not bad business on a cold January weekend. I know David talks a lot about the sports facilities at VMI and what that brings to our community. So these are the kinds of things that prop us up when it's not traditional tourist season, when the other attractions, are not open. So very grateful to have that. For this particular event, we have one more year on the contract with the Horse Center, and we're hoping that we'll be able to extend that into a longer stay. Last year was the first year that we were actually able to offer sponsorships to partner organizations for events, and we did 2 rounds of those, and we'll be offering 2 more rounds in this calendar year. And so had mixed results. It's a learning curve for everybody, for us as well as the organizations doing those events. And as we move through the process, those organizations learned the things that really, trigger us. Where do your attendees come from? What are they spending? What are the things that bring them here? So it's been a good move for us, and I'm happy that we're able to offer that. We also, last year, I don't know if that's mentioned in this report or not, because we couldn't have the Freedom Food Festival, worked with our Freedom Food Festival partners as well as John Stollard of Chef's Catering, and hosted a takeout lunch on the parking lot of the Lexington Visitor Center. And we're able to offer some nominal funds to other organizations having events over the 4th of July weekend. This year, 4th of July weekend will be a really, really big deal here. And we're applying for some marketing funds to help market that a little bit bigger outside the area. But between the Balloons Over Rock Bridge, Freedom Food Festival, the music and fireworks in Buena Vista, the bike parade, there's 3 more things. What is it? Anyway, there's a lot going on. And so it will be a big weekend, and I hope that you'll invite all your friends and family to spend that particular holiday with you, because you won't have to do any entertaining. Your community is going to do that for you. So that's this is a wrap-up of what we did last year. Moving forward, we're right in the middle of a Virginia Tourism Grant called Drive 2.0. Some of you filled out a survey. I think Chuck was a little stunned by the depth of the survey, maybe. But it did ask you to think, and so we'll be following through with that. And it's an answer to a question that the state's research team had: what do we need to build and what do we need to promote within the Commonwealth? So we'll be working on those questions for our community in the next couple months. And also, just like every organization around, every municipality, every entity, there are more grant opportunities than we can say grace over. And in addition to the ARPA funds, which I know you've talked through, Dennis has brought you to the table with what we're going to use the ARPA funds with, there are a series of other grants for sports marketing, for special events and festivals, for recovery marketing. There's at least 2 more. So we have several of our partners are applying for some of those. I think Lime Kiln Theater may be applying for one. Gravista, which is off-road bike race that happens at Glenmorey Park. They're applying for one, as is Balloons Over Rock Bridge. So we've spent a lot of time counseling a lot of our partners on how to make those grants work, and hope that everybody gets that funding. The ARPA projects, the short-term vacation rental surveys, the special events module, some way to have events ready for people that anybody can access for the entire community. That's as well as our media tours. We'll have 3 media tours through a major media market, and we'll be doing them in segments, one in the summer, one in the fall, and one next spring. And those will bring in 8 to 10 writers at a time, and then we'll have an additional 8 writers throughout the year to go along with those. And those, I don't mean to say writers, because a lot of them are broadcast now too. So whether they're doing podcasts or whether they're doing open broadcasting. A A lot of our partners are having great success. You know, we were the host for the Dinner for the Ready presentation at the Horse Center last fall, and we worked hard with our 4 partners, the 2 economic development offices at Chamber of Commerce and Main Street Lexington, to pull that off. And we're still talking about those issues that came from that report, whether it's workforce or education or childcare, and housing. And I know you've had that conversation here as well. So those are all still things, because that's what's impacting the tourism market a lot, is the workforce issues and not being able to find enough people to fill all the slots. So, you know, our businesses are just like everybody else's businesses, trying to figure out ways to make it happen. Just a couple stats, if you'd be interested in hearing, that our top feeder markets continue to be Virginia, with the Hampton Roads area, Northern Virginia being major feeders. In the North Carolina market, it's Charlotte and Raleigh. Maryland with Baltimore and Hagerstown, Philadelphia, New York, and Atlanta. So those are our top feeder markets for our visitors right now. State Park, the Virginia Safari Park, those attractions are just blowing it out of the water, and we appreciate what they bring to our community. And the last thing I was going to talk about, but maybe it'd be better to let Chuck talk about it whenever he wants to, is about our Rockbridge Outdoors program. And that's, if you remember, was a result of, I guess, 7 years of work now from a workshop that we attended in 2014. And it's grown into about 43 partners throughout Lexington, Butte Vista, and Rockbridge County, who either have a business interest or an agency interest or a passion for creating outdoor experiences, marketing outdoor experiences, and promoting those to visitors as well as residents. And one of the things, we had a meeting yesterday actually, and one of the committees is about, runs in line with the Hospital Healthy Living Consortium, and it's this Park RX. And it's developing these opportunities for physicians to actually prescribe outdoors for people, whether it's for anxiety or physical health or mental health or emotional health. And so it was pretty interesting to see, pull up the map of the Commonwealth, and our community is the only communities actually west of Charlottesville in the state who has anything like this. So hopefully, working with Healthy Kids Rockbridge, we can make better experiences for our children, so that, you know, perhaps even one day a lofty goal might be that they have a better attitude about going to work and we won't have workforce issues, who knows? But it's good to dream, isn't it? Does anybody have any questions for me? I'm ready for you.
Not a question, just an added comment to the Park RX program. Gene let some of the folks on the Rockbridge Outdoors leadership about a segment that NPR did today on Here and Now, their segment that they do. And the idea behind it was exactly what Gene described as the mental health and physical health benefits just from going outside and walking around and taking in nature. But one critical part of what was shared in that broadcast was the inequity issues that many communities have, so that everybody has access to outdoor activities. And she shared that when she was growing up in Toronto, they really didn't have that sort of opportunity. She's out in British Columbia now, where nature's everywhere. But it's something, I think, when you think of nature, everybody has access to it. But in fact, that isn't really the case, especially in heavy urban areas where socioeconomic conditions don't avail the opportunity for residents to take advantage of something that they really should be able to. So I thought that was one of my main takeaways of what was broadcast on NPR today.
Do you remember when we had the John Jarvis homecoming celebration when Jarvis was the head of the National Park Service?
Natural Bridge? Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And with that, we were working with the Appalachian Trail Conservancy as well as the U.S. Forest Service because, we're all right here in the shadows of the Blue Ridge Parkway and the Appalachian Trail. But if you don't know, you don't know. And so, we were working to have teacher groups take students in small groups out to the Appalachian Trail just so they'd see, where a trailhead might be or how to walk a short distance. And I feel like we could probably go back and work on that some more,
I had mentioned to one of the teachers here, just get buses of kids to take them down to Natural Bridge and let them walk around. And I would venture 75% of the students have not been down there, underneath the bridge and all the way back to the falls. That might be
So
Another
often
update.
when there are special events at the bridge and, if we're down there volunteering with the Friends group, you'll hear real often, well, I haven't been here since I was in 4th grade. And, it is kind of the thing that once you see it, you've seen it. Once you've seen it, you see it. But it is awe-inspiring no matter how many times you see it. So it's a great walk, too, a great hike. Mr. Ayers.
Yes, first, I want to thank you for all you do for our community. It's been a pleasure working with you on the tourism board. Two things. One, on our consent agenda, there's the permit for the Freedom Festival, and since it's on our consent agenda, I'm wondering if you could just take a moment to describe that event to us.
Okay, I'll go back and start with our concept was in the beginning. We felt like it had been a while since we'd had a good party, and we thought July the 3rd would be a good time to have a good party. And so we pulled partners together. It was actually George Hughes's brainchild, and it was kind of born out of a project that Main Street Lexington had talked about and had never come to fruition, which was like a long table meal. And then we decided it'd be a little more fun if we had some great music instead of just eating potluck on Main Street. And it grew from there. And so the first event that we had, we were really hopeful that we could get 1,000 to 1,200 people. And it was a hot as heck night, and the streets were full, and the band was good, and we ran out of food in the first 30 minutes. And the beer line was so long that people gave up. But it was a good party, and we're going to prepare better and plan better for this year. It'll be on a Sunday night, and it will not impact downtown traffic as much as it might. We're not going to ask to have the block that has all the churches in it blocked off till after services on Sunday. We might have the other block a little bit earlier because we need to set up the bandstand. But it's actually to benefit nonprofits. So we have nonprofits paired with either caterers or restaurants to create menus that they can prepare. I think we're going to ask them to do 300 meals each. And we're heading for 6 to 7 different chefs. And then there's a little competition between them. And, folks get to vote for their favorite meal. And this year, and I may be premature in saying this, I don't know how the meeting went with the ABC folks, but we're hoping that instead of bringing in beer trucks and wineries, that we'll be able to utilize the new ABC regulations that let folks go into restaurants and be able to buy their beverages in there. And then we'll have other nonprofits who'll be selling non-alcoholic beverages and desserts and kids' meals. So in the end, last time, and we had, I guess, 8 to 10 sponsors 2 years ago when we hosted this, and we're shooting for 15 sponsors this year. And so with the money raised from the meal sales, along with the sponsorship, I think we gifted 9 nonprofits a little over $2,000 each. So we're just hopeful that it's as much fun this time as it was last time, because it was fun. Took me 3 days to recover, but it was fun.
Jean, the ABC law in regard to carrying out drinks has been extended till 24. So you might be okay.
Okay, thank you. Anything else?
Two quick comments. Even though hopefully the pandemic is in the rearview mirror, please express, the locality's thanks to your board and your staff for the budget flexibility that tourism helped, the two cities in the county with, because, everyone was pitching in during that time, and the flexibility was very much appreciated by everyone.
Thank you.
So please pass that on. But then also, thanks for investing in the sponsorship program. The events that you sponsor and give kind of a lift up to are in the fabric of Rockbridge County and Buena Vista and Lexington. And it's fantastic that tourism gives them some funds and probably some expertise also to help market their events. Because again, I can't think of Rockbridge County without the Pie Festival or without the Moy River Fiddlers Convention, or any of these events that got a small grant or sponsorship from you all. So that's just a thank you back to your board and your team.
Thanks, David, appreciate that. All right.
Other comments or questions? Jean, thrilled that your report did not include the failure of AC in your building. Congratulations on the extension of your lease, which will keep you in your current location for 3 years.
3 years.
At a minimum. And as a grandmother, be prepared for the walk to Boxerwood in a couple of years. I'm not sure if it's third or fourth graders that make that trek from Waddell. And given the time that you've been in your position and the work involved.
Okay, now, first you took a stab at my age. And now, Frank, seriously?
I want to express my personal deep appreciation for when your industry gets shut down, the way that you all responded financially, but also professionally. I'm reminded of a quote that the time when patience is most needed is when it's exhausted. And it certainly had lots of times of exhaustion over the past couple of years with the pandemic. So thank you for your patience and for your professionalism.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Come back and see us anytime.
I will, thank you.
Next, I'd like to call on Eric Wilson from the Historical Society. Welcome, Eric.
Inclined to cede my time for a deep dive into National Pets with Thumbs Day. I'm sure we could figure something out, but I won't. I will just share a very brief Trill Glow personal thanks, council thanks to a particular recent event this past week and some others involving community history in our schools, as school and middle school. On Friday, it was last Friday, our 8th graders, we took all the 8th graders over to the Lilburn Downing High School Alumni Room in the community center for their, what I would call our annual school history field trip, though that was paused last year. So it was nice to be able to resume that, a chance to give students a worksheet, really get them looking carefully at pictures and captions and just learning some things about the school that is both their own school in an important way and very much not their school in important ways. And to have a sense of that as they are heading towards graduation. They will walk out of here in a little different feel for that. What was special this year is we had the presence of several of you, took times out of your day to do that, to share comments. Mr. Sigler's daughter gets a little gold star for humoring what was a very nice stump speech about the value of community schools. I watched her, she was not blushing, she was nodding. And Ms. Alexander, thank you for spending about 20 minutes each with a couple classes that really spoke not just to school experience, but the ways in which school experiences at their best are tied into the community. I now know where everybody snuck away to get candy during school. You told she did not disclose whether she was part of everybody, but those were very personal elements that I think connected with the students, and it was rich enough that we had to extend it on Monday. I don't think I've been able to tell you or others, Mr. Watts, Francis Watts, was able to join us, and he had plenty of things to share as well. So we've got alumni, we've got citizen leaders. In fact, we have at least 3 parents here in the audience of kids who were there. And what was it, the Tuesday before, and you may want to speak to this as well, the entire Lilburn Downing School is part of our new social emotional learning curriculum for a Black History Month ending. Faculty had put together a few different things. One was a sort of quest on the Black Businesses website that Tourism and Rockbridge Historical Society in Washington and Lee have developed, exploring some of those and the cultural institutions we've worked to interpret. Another element was an introduction to HBCUs and even sort of tutorials and how-tos and the basic steps of step dancing. So if you felt a little tremor on Tuesday morning at about 8:15, that was 150 Lilburn Downing students, all the faculty engaged in this. So to just tie it all together, again, both as a faculty member, but community historian, the ability to find moments to integrate these things are important. I don't know that they would process it, but the fact that students saw our civic leaders there, they saw that neighborhood people cared to do this will make an impact. I think, a month ago, most of our students didn't know what a school board really was or did. In spite of the good service that many of you have put in there, but all the students were asked on School Board Appreciation Month to write a note to the school board. So we had to explain what's a school board. And then there are councils, and you all show up. I mean, you show up and doing your job, but you literally show up for that. And, they're a click further along in understanding that kind of commitment. And when Juneteenth comes and there's a school dedication and there's more food trucks and there's more games and more personal witness, again, there'll be a click further along. And we thank you for your leadership of the city and of the school board, and we'll see you next time.
Excellent. Any questions for Eric?
I just applaud Eric and the other staff for all that you're putting into including the history of this part of Lexington and its history. A lot of schools are canceling what students are learning about the Black history of that locality or of all the United States. And that's unfortunate because it's a part of all our history. And when I saw that one of the teachers, Ms. Conway, included the HBCUs and the fraternities and sororities and the step dancing, I could not believe it. And I think that Lilburn Downing really should be on the map as a leader in Virginia for enhancing its curriculum in this way. It's just unbelievable, and I applaud all of you. Thank you.
So a broad commitment. My last comment would be that, in that moment of what does get taught or should or shouldn't, I think the value of local history is pretty undeniable. When people say, where is this coming from and what's the guide, to put local history front there, that is good community work. And it can open up in lots of different ways, of course. So, again, our institution and many others are positioned to do that. We'll keep after it.
Other comments? As a parent, thank you for organizing. As an alumnus, thank you for celebrating. And I can't help but think the opportunity that you created will inspire many of the students when they see a Marilyn Alexander or David Ziegler speaking to them and showing them the opportunities that they weren't aware of. So thank you again. Appreciate you joining us, and we'll look forward to seeing you next time.
That's good. Thanks all.
Next item on our agenda are public hearings. We have one under unfinished business, but no new ones this evening. Next item would be consideration of minutes, and those were included in your packet for the February 17 City Council work session regular meeting. Unless there's an objection, I'd like to approve those as presented. And I hear no objection. See some heads nodding. Next item is citizens' remarks and comments, and we welcome all citizens and visitors to speak to us. I have one person who signed up, and I'd like to call on Mark Reed. Mark, if you could state your name and address for the record as usual, and welcome.
Hi, Mark Reed, 614 Ross Road here in Lexington. A year ago, I was in the middle of running for our Virginia House of Delegates. I didn't come close to winning, but I learned some valuable things along the way. Running for public office is hard work. I walked a lot of Lexington miles, easily twice as many as I do normally, tasked with asking in person for votes. I knocked on hundreds of doors, met hundreds of people I didn't know before. One of the things that I heard from many Lexington voters is that they don't feel represented in Richmond. To be blunt, Lexington voters told me their delegate only represents the interests of the people whose political views align with his. To be even blunter, Lexington voters told me they would expect to be struck by lightning before they would expect to see their delegate darkening their doorstep asking for their vote. You won't see me campaigning for delegate again, but you may have recently seen me walking around Lexington with a clipboard, and you can expect to see me around for a few months, because I want to ask you to sign a petition to put a referendum on the November ballot that will require any person who wants to be on the Lexington School Board to be elected by the 4,000 plus Lexington voters, as opposed to appointed by 6 members of the Lexington City Council. I don't have a quarrel with anyone on the school board or our city council, but speaking as someone who has been denied the right to vote, and as someone whose vote was in fact stolen, I want the people who represent me spend my tax dollars and make decisions for school-aged children and their parents to earn my vote. I have the right to vote, and I plan to exercise it. A group of like-minded citizens, nonpartisan, and I are circulating a petition for a referendum that asks a straightforward question. Shall the method of selecting the school board be changed from appointment by the governing body to direct election by the voters? I submit that the answer is yes. I'm asking Lexington voters to sign this petition. And when it's on the November ballot, I'm asking Lexington voters to check the box that says yes. Any person who aspires to serve on Lexington's school board, who hopes to serve our children, their parents, and Lexington taxpayers, should be making their case to the people of Lexington, not just 6 members of Lexington City Council. Thank you. You can go to the Facebook page, which is Elect Lexington's School Board, and you can email electlexschoolboard@gmail.com if you have any questions. I'll personally go to anybody's door, petition in hand for a signature. Even if you don't want to vote for it when it gets on the ballot, you can always use the democratic process to put it on the ballot, because that's your right as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Appreciate you being here, and appreciate your efforts in our community. Next item on the agenda is consent agenda, and I would ask for council's consideration.
I make a motion that we approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Have a motion, a second, and a roll call vote. Mr. Smith. Aye. Mr. Ziegler.
Aye.
Mr. Alligood.
Aye.
Mr. Ayers.
Aye.
Ms. Strawn.
Aye.
Ms. Alexander.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much. And please make note of those dates. The Freedom Food Festival on the 3rd of July and the Woods Creek Trail Run for Kids. Next item is unfinished business, and I will call on the city manager for an update on the Spotswood site.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. City Council, of course, is intimately familiar with the process that's ongoing to select a developer to partner with us on the development of the Spotswood site. At this time, we've already had one work session, January 20th, where the council became familiar with the developers and the proposals they had submitted. And obviously, just 2 nights ago, another work session where the developers were invited to make a presentation, and there was a very extended period of question and answer with the developers and city council in the form of, again, a work session that was very productive in my view. There will be a further work session, of course, on March 15th. a little less than 2 weeks from tonight. And again, at that time, there will be discussion with City Council. Staff will bring some factors that we will be using to evaluate the proposals and then make a recommendation to council in the future as to which developer may be the best partner to go forward with and look at the development of the Spotswood site. And that proposal, I should say, recommendation will be forthcoming on April 7th when there will be a public hearing. And if we keep on that schedule, again, staff and I will make a recommendation at that point. Of course, the reason we're going through this process is so City Council is very well informed and can make a great decision for this community, for our community, and get the best value at the Spotswood site. Also, though, we're going through it so the public is very well informed and has plenty of opportunity to comment, to participate, and to be included in this conversation so that when a developer is ultimately chosen, it truly does, that developer and that group truly is the best option for bringing value to the community and putting something on the Spotswood site that we're all proud of and that we all will benefit from. So there's a dual purpose there in this process. And I hope the public will continue to be involved, comment, ask questions at every step of the process. So, Mr. Mayor, that's all I have, just to reiterate where we're going.
Terrific. Members of council have any questions for the city manager? Again, our effort and ambition is to be as transparent and clear to all of the community where we are in the process and what we're aiming to accomplish. So thank you very much, Jim. Next item on the agenda is a continuation of the public hearing and consideration of a request from Paul Cosmas on property at 17 North Randolph Street.
Good evening to you all again. If I could direct your attention for this particular request to page 40 of the packet, which is also page 15 of the staff report. That is the floor plan that was provided to you at your last meeting. And just to quickly go over, there's a requirement in the C1 zoning district for dwelling units on the first floor to be shielded by retail office or lobby space. And there wasn't retail office or lobby space on that particular proposal. So you directed staff and the applicant to work together to come up with an alternate proposal. And on page 49 of your packet or page 24 of the staff report is an alternate proposal. I had to credit the applicant. Once we had selected a date to meet or scheduled a date, he came in and immediately already had this revision provided by Fraser Associates. And the draft I have here is on February 22nd, 22. And that provides a bit of shielding from that front part by office space. So it's now called a live-work dwelling. So we still have the dwelling unit in the back. And previously where we had two, we now have one in the back. And the unit that's up front is designated as a live-work space. And as you walk into the vestibule there off of North Randolph, if you go to the left, there's an office. That's a lockout type office, so it could be utilized separately from the live workspace, or it could be utilized in conjunction with the live workspace. And it has its own half bath with, I believe, the appropriate or required ADA type bathroom with that 5-foot radius. So the concession or proposal for you this evening is a different type of dwelling unit where up to or close to half of the front of the building is now office space, where the other half is still part of a residence. Happy to answer any questions.
Members of council have questions?
Just one, Arnie, I want to make sure that the recommendation that we have in our packet is where you are now, correct?
Correct. Staff
Okay.
recommendation doesn't change.
Okay, got it.
And I believe you had a question of would it, as the recommendation for parking, as an example, would it actually fit? And I went up there and stepped it off, and if the generator is removed, it would fit.
So that portion of the sidewalk where the proposed parking is, I mean, it's a pretty big step down to the street. That's the general area, and it'll curb cut there.
Correct, and there may be some gymnastics in having to get that in there, but I'm sure Jeff and Public Works would have a reasonable measure for installing that.
Very good.
or having that installed.
If they reduce the number of bedrooms, would you still recommend having parking there?
Because of the flexibility that's being asked for in the type of units, particularly on the short-term side, we could discuss if it's 1 or 2 bedrooms less, but just not knowing how often it's going to be used for short-term rental, in my mind, that's the bigger impact. We could have more people there on a shorter-term basis, but more often. So the parking, I think we would stick by that even if the bedrooms were reduced by 1 or 2.
And just to be clear why this is different than maybe any other property downtown, because you do state in your report that the design does not meet the zoning standards for the first floor since it's not completely shielded, but this is a better proposal than the last one. So what makes this property a little different than the rest of the ones in C1?
For this particular property, the type of road it's on is not as heavily traveled foot traffic type pedestrian frontage. We really don't have as much retail around there. And we have approved other ones, but they weren't on a particular retail street or even on a street. So is that the type of answer you're looking for as to what makes this particular proposal different from other ones that we've seen that were similar?
Yeah, or why should not everybody expect to have this kind of accommodation if they want to add?
Okay.
Because now it is basically multifamily, right? There's no other definition for this building than multifamily.
It is a mixed-use building, yes. Well, because it's going to have a little bit of an office component, so you could call it live-work, and that meets our definition of live-work. But for them, primarily, it is a multifamily building that could be rented either short or long-term.
Right, and I'm just asking so that if we do make this exception, we're clear why this is different, this location in this particular building is different than anything else in C1.
I know that you want to stay consistent with your votes, but I'm going to have to say it's case by case, and in this case, it is a little bit different. But you are not setting precedent because, again, these are case by case.
And I think it's fair for, if council wants to, as they move forward, if they adopt the staff's recommendation to identify that this is not a precedent that's being set, it's to this unique property, don't necessarily have to have reasons behind it that'll be a debate for another day, but disappointed that the applicant didn't come back with the full portion of the front. I respect the compromise, but really had hoped to see the front business part of that for this being a commercial business in C1 district versus asking for it to be rezoned.
I would just like to point out, you kind of described in your background information why it's special or different. I mean, it is, you say North Randolph Street is marginally identified with the core of downtown Lexington and not a significant commercial corridor. And I think that's a very accurate description of that property and that location. There's residences all around it. The owner is saying this is the best use of this property, and I totally understand that this cannot set a precedent. But for my part, I would prefer to follow staff's recommendation in this instance and approve this particular request.
I'd certainly welcome that as a motion, if that was the intention.
Shall I make a motion? Okay.
Can we ask the applicant any questions, or will that come after?
Well, we still need to have the public hearing actually beforehand. I jumped the gun, my apologies. Any other questions for Arnie?
I think it was just shared that it isn't, I'm trying to find the right term in here. It's not a high commercial traffic area, and thus this CIP is more applicable to this situation. So if it does become a high commercial traffic area, how would that weigh into the continuation of the CUP?
once the CUP is approved, it's approved. And if the conditions change, there's no real way to reach back until the applicant applies for something else.
Okay.
Mr. Alligood.
With regard to the parking requirement, the conditions is with the condition that 2 paved on-site parking spaces be provided with a paved approach from the street as required by the Department of Public Works and the improvements to the exterior of the property, et cetera. But just focusing on the parking right now. Mr. Cosmos, when he was here before, talked about the difficulty of providing any parking. And because it was commercial, there wasn't a parking requirement for that. And that with the provision for needing 2 spaces, it looks like the recommendation was that it would be around the corner on Henry Street or in the backyard. Can it be on the street, or does it have to be off the street according to this driveway thing?
The staff recommendation is for 2 off-street parking spaces, so they would have to be off of Henry Street because there's really no other location for them to come off, certainly not from the Randolph Street side.
And it has to be on Mr. Cosmos's property. For example, in some other instances, City Council had allowed leasing of adjacent parking spaces to accommodate parking requirements for certain properties that were going to be, I think, short-term rentals is what we were talking about then and whatnot. So how might that fit into the plan to get these 2 spaces?
If you wanted to provide the flexibility to utilize that language that's in section 12 for off-street parking that's within 500 feet, as long as they have a long-term agreement, either purchasing the property or a long-term lease, and I'll find that reference for you. But if you wanted to provide that flexibility that the 2 spaces could either be located on the parcel coming off of Henry Street in accordance with the 2 sentences that you read, or they have the option of providing those 2 parking spaces in accordance with the section that I'll provide to you. That is generally within 500 feet of the property, but they have to, engage that piece of property for a long term.
And so further, it begs the question to me, our treatment of other properties in the city where we have allowed the leasing of property, shouldn't we likewise allow, or how is this different from that?
Well, we take each conditional use permit as it comes, and I think in this particular instance, it would make sense if the applicant has the space for the 2 spots behind him to make that a condition of this approval, so that is actually accomplished. I would imagine it would be harder to police, or not, police may not be the right word, but it would be harder to keep track of whether property owners are actually leasing spots elsewhere. So from my perspective, I think it would be cleaner simply to adopt the staff recommendation of the 2 spaces in the back, providing that's what the applicant has agreed to.
It was my understanding from the documents that I read that the applicant takes exception to having to do the 2 spaces in the back because of the rocks.
Well, I guess it comes down to the question of are there 4 votes on city council to allow this along with lease property? That's the point where I may step away from approving this, so I don't know where everybody else is.
So I've got a question for Arnie, just about the application, and if I can, about the parking that is recommended. Is the curb cut at the city's expense? Because the city owns the sidewalk, and when you look at this, I mean, the sidewalk, if it wasn't for the earth, the dirt that is built up between the road and the sidewalk, it is legitimately 18 inches to 2 feet drop off. And so if the dirt is removed and it's no longer a safe slope, if you will. It is a drastic drop-off. That affects multiple properties on that street, essentially. And the curb cut will be a challenge. You've got multiple water meters right there. So just wondering, is that at the city's expense to put the curb cut in the city-owned sidewalk that the city's requiring the spots? Because the city does maintain the sidewalks.
Yeah, sorry, I don't want to misspeak. So just a second.
Because it's not just a curb cut, you literally kind of, need to put a ramp then from the city street up a couple feet to the sidewalk, to the curb cut. And that is not the place I would design for a parking spot if I was, if that was my job to do.
Arnie, while you're researching, I'm going to call on the city manager for some comments.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to follow up on Councilmember Strawn's comment or question, what are the exceptional conditions? And I think Mr. Ayers identified one, and you're discussing it now, and that is parking. In many circumstances, parking on site is not available in the downtown. And so in this specific instance, it makes a better case for going ahead and granting the CUP, even though there are some difficulties perhaps with parking. The other factor that I think that is very relevant is the fact that it is on the edge perimeter of a residential district. Again, very few, I shouldn't say very few, but most properties downtown, that would not be the case. And in fact, if you look at that street, the only property that looks truly commercial is the laundromat across the street. Even the homes that are occupied with businesses, well, they look like homes for the most part. And so it looks like the fabric is residential of that area as opposed to commercial or retail. So I think those are factors that when we looked at it as staff were important, and to understand that we don't want to set a precedent, it is best to have this discussion on the record and recognize that those are factors that in the future, if somebody makes a case or determines they would like to make a case for similar treatment, are very different than perhaps the vast majority of people who may seek something similar in the future.
Arnie, were you able to locate what you're looking for?
It's not clear that the city is responsible for that particular improvement that's in the right of way. So I would look to the city manager to see if that's offered by us or if that's something that the applicant would be responsible for improving, since it is the conditions on the property that's potentially requiring the 2 parking spaces. And if I may, going back to the other question, found the section that I wanted to refer to. So you could have a requirement for the 2 parking spaces if you wanted to on-site, or provide flexibility in accordance with 420-12.3, which says that parking spaces shall be required on the same parcel as the principal use, provided, however, that upon the recommendation of the Planning Commission made part of a conditional use permit by City Council, a portion of off-street parking for uses in districts other than residential may be located in a remote parking lot which is within 500 feet measured along lines of public access from the principal use. A remote parking lot to satisfy the requirement shall be owned by the owner of the principal use structure, or in the alternative, shall be restricted by a recorded agreement to off-street parking purposes during the lifetime of the principal structure. So there's some specific language in there. It's still not always easy to keep up with, admittedly.
But we don't have to require parking for this since it's in the C1, right?
Right, there is an out in the C1, so no off-street parking is required in this particular case because we have, the recommendation comes because of the type of use, the additional bedrooms, and the additional requests for the short-term rental, I think, is what's driving maybe a little bit of caution as to how many folks will be there on any given weekend, particularly on larger weekends, if you will, and then also acknowledging the loss of the public parking directly across the street.
We'll pause and hear from the applicant, and then we'll hold our public hearing. So, Mr. Cosmas, if you'd like to come forward. Welcome.
Hello, everybody. Paul Cosmas, 13 Whitmore Street, Lexington. First, thanks to all of you for your very thorough, I'm going to keep it short this time compared to last time, I promise you, very thorough consideration of our request here. I'll say First, that I think our investment is an investment in our property, but also in the street, in the neighborhood, and in downtown. I think it's a win-win for all of those stakeholders. Frankly, I don't see the downside in it. And also, there's a demonstrated need for the type of diverse housing that we're providing. So frankly, that's why I'm asking for your approval in this and your consideration. To address the parking issue, the backyard is very small. I don't know how many of you have seen it. One, I've already actually removed the trash receptacles, which was requested, to the rear of the property, and we will improve that further as we go through this, if we go forward with this development process. It's really impractical. If you've seen the site, if you've actually visited it and stepped up on the sidewalk and looked, to get vehicles in and out onto Henry Street through a steep curb cut, it's really impractical. It would be expensive for whoever it is, whether it's the city or us, and it's not going to be great navigating vehicles in and out of this very small spot. To turn around a car, it just requires so much space, and to put two in there. So from our standpoint, that's a huge challenge, really makes it practically infeasible to move forward, to require it on site. We're completely amenable to meeting the city code and leasing 2 spaces long-term, which has apparently been done before, and we're totally fine with that. I would like to also remind you that our proposed use reduces parking demand. So in fact, we're helping the city by the spots that are being lost in the parking lot across the street. This, you would assume that a 3 additional bedrooms would require at most 3 vehicles usually. I said 2 to 4 in my letter to y'all. The current configuration is 7 offices. So you figure 7 commercial offices is 7 vehicles if it were fully occupied, plus whatever clientele they have. So from its current configuration, we're actually reducing impact on city resources as far as parking goes. So I don't think we're asking for any special privilege. We're just hoping that you'll let us develop this one part of our building and part of our neighborhood that's in the best interest of the people that are coming here for short-term workforce housing, demonstrated need for workforce housing. That's our primary market. I know short-term has been mentioned several times, and I don't know how else to say it except for I give you my word. Our intention is to market this as 30 to 90-day rentals to people that are coming here working professionally at the university, in the community, at Modine, those types of people that need not a weekend rental for a football game, but a workforce housing. And, as Ms. Lyons said, there's a desperate need for it. And so that's why we converted the 1 unit. And I hope that you'll see that we made a really strong effort at compromising, because the live-work unit is a single unit, the front half of the building, that is a commercial designation, a by right use in C1. So really the entire front of the building is a commercial use. Granted, it's a mix, live and work, just like it says. But we took away a bedroom. We removed the bedroom that remained to the back, farther from the street. We added the office to the front, and we added, as Arnie said, an ADA bathroom. So now it's a 1 bedroom, 1 office, 1.5 bathroom, handicap accessible bathroom. So I hope you think that made a good effort that makes it worthy of our investment and will be a benefit to the people that are coming here and to the community. I hope that you'll see through to approve it without the on-site parking. That'll be really difficult for us. And that's all I'll say. Thanks. Any questions?
Thank you, sir. Any questions for the applicant? Ms. Alexander.
I don't have any questions, but I just, want to make some comments. That number one, it would always be my preference to adhere strictly to what the zoning requires. But in reading the letters that were attached to your document, people were addressing the needs of the community in regard to needing rentals. And I'm well aware that needs do change over time, even though how it's zoned now, needs do change from right now, more commercial space, it's there, but it's not needed. So how does an owner put a unique piece of property to good use, as well as make it taxable, help us. But we also look at it, the intents and purposes and overall fit into the neighborhood. That neighborhood has always been a mixed use with a lot of residences and a few commercial establishments spread around. So if it were going to stick out like a sore thumb and this were the only parcel that was residential or the only thing that would be commercial, we'd have a different conversation. So I am inclined to look at this as us being more flexible rather than rigid. And you've done the due diligence to compromise in this situation. The frontage, half of the frontage is commercial, the other half is residential. But I drive by there 10 times a week. I never see anybody walking along that sidewalk. They might come down Henry Street and go up to Main, but along that frontage, I never see it. So I'm inclined to move forward.
Hearing no other or additional questions? We still need
Yeah,
to.
I just want to be clear, maybe this is a question for Arnie. I just want to be clear,
Let me conduct the public hearing,
okay.
and then we'll work towards questions or a motion and any conversation. Paul, thank you.
Thank you, appreciate it.
At this time, I'd like to open the public hearing. Is there anyone here this evening who would like to speak to this issue? I'm hearing none. At 8:11, I'd like to close the public hearing and ask for council's consideration.
Before I make the motion, I'd like to ask Arnie, so you're comfortable with making the off-site parking, leased parking, a part of the this approval?
If you, as a council, intend to still require 2 parking spaces and you're wanting to provide the flexibility of not just allowing it on-site or requiring it on-site, you do have the flexibility if you wanted to add this part to the condition that says, or in compliance with section 12.3 of the parking requirements. So again, that provides the applicant with a bit of flexibility. He still has to provide 2 if that's what you're looking for. And they can either be on-site or up to 500 feet away according to those standards that I read a little bit ago.
Okay. I guess I would, I'd love to hear from the rest of council whether you're comfortable moving forward with that or whether you would prefer to drop the parking requirement.
Personally, I'm comfortable with what the applicant has offered to lease, to enter in a long-term lease or within 500 feet. We keep talking about precedent. You've got the Georges on Lawyers Row, and they don't have off-street parking right at those rooms. But within 500 feet, they've got their parking lot that's a part of their property. And again, precedent, this is a CUP. What we're granting is for this proposal, and we will deviate if it's not right for a future request.
Okay.
I spoke extensively before. I am impressed and appreciative of anyone that offers to invest their resources in Lexington. Sometimes it's commercial, sometimes it's a mix. This is a niche of housing that they're offering, that he is contending of the 30 to 90 day. We don't really have that. And even if it was Airbnb on weekends, you know how I feel about that being in a commercial district. So I'm comfortable with what he's proposed, leasing the spots as he's offered, and it does seem impractical to me, and actually to the neighborhood, to watch someone in a backhoe get in there and remove rock and the curb cut, and people would say, who made him do that? And we'd be the ones to say, we took out a nice backyard that maybe people would enjoy to build a ramp up to 2 parking spots that are paved or gravel or concrete. So I'm comfortable.
Mr. Alligood.
Just to clarify, I don't think the applicant offered for the leased spots.
I think the applicant did offer just now.
We can ask the applicant
Yeah.
if you can confirm your position on it. Go ahead and turn the mic on for me, please. Thank you, Paul.
Yes, we are comfortable locating according to the terms that the city already has established within 500 feet, 2 spots, long-term lease. Yes, we are comfortable with that. I'm not comfortable, it's very impractical to do it on-site, is what I specifically meant to say.
Okay, well, in that case, I guess we're ready to move forward. I move that we approve the CUP request for 17 North Randolph Street with the condition that 2 paved on-site parking spaces or 2 leased parking spaces in compliance with section
420-12.3.
420-12.3 as required by, and the improvements to the exterior of the property as offered by Mr. Cosmos attached also be required and completed before a building permit is issued.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Mr. Smith?
Is the public hearing still open, or did we close that?
We closed it.
Did we? Okay, I
Yes.
didn't hear that, thank you.
Ms. Strong?
I would like to add another condition, which would be the uses and layout of the first floor of the subject building shall be in substantial compliance with the Fraser Associates floor plan dated stamped to February 2nd, 2022, and the designated office space shall not be used as living, sleeping, or storage space. To verify that it is a live-work dwelling, it is not, that cannot be turned into a bedroom without changing the CUP.
I'll second that addition,
Well,
or as a.
it's up to Dennis, I guess, to change his motion, but I would like to offer that as an additional.
Okay, then I would like to modify my motion to include that addition. Fraser Associates, yeah.
And Mr. Alligood, do you accept that as well?
I accept that as a second.
Very good. And if council has no objection, we'll depart from Robert's rules and let that stand with it since it pleases and not have a couple of votes. Is there any other comments relative to this or looking at the proffers? The addendum on that page 25 of the staff report. I would just, one of the things I understand the generator is to be removed from the property. There's a fencing around it currently. I don't know if it's the intent of staff for that to be removed or just the generator itself. But I was hopeful that there could be some greater clarity related to that.
When we were talking about on-street parking, 2 on-street parking spaces, the fence and the generator needed to be removed in that particular case. But if the applicant chooses to do the off-street parking spaces somewhere else, then it's up to you if you want to have clarity on the removal of the fence as well as the generator.
Yeah. I would ask the applicant, what's your intention or plan as we, okay. I'm sorry, if you can step up, Paul.
We're fine with that.
Very
We're fine
good.
with all of the other conditions that were suggested by staff, by Arnie. Staff, I don't know what for Arnie.
Sure, thank you. I took the opportunity, and I think other members of council did as well, just to go and kick the dirt, so to speak. Didn't trespass, I stayed on the sidewalk. And just a couple of observations. First and foremost, thank you for relocating the trash cans, looked much better. I was concerned trying to walk up Henry Street. There's a massive tree bush that encroaches the sidewalk, and I hope, I didn't see that in the list, but I hope that that's part and parcel. It appeared a downspout in the rear empties onto your neighbor's property, so I'm not sure, Mr. Welsh, with a commercial building next door, but an observation. And then it looked as though not dangerous, but part of the power coming from the sidewalk on Randolph to the building is detached from the building. So, and lastly, just ivy and vines around the side and back. So I know that was a problem for the tenants on with the Blue Sky building. And it just becomes problematic when you have overgrowth on your building. So as you work towards the exterior of the building, I would envision that the vines and everything will be removed before it gets painted, but perhaps stating the obvious, make those observations and request if we can do anything to help you with your process and be a better neighbor. We want to do that. So have a motion and a second. Does anyone need the motion repeated for any reason? If not, I would ask for a roll call vote. Mr. Smith?
I think we've reached the round peg and round hole situation. Thank you.
Mr. Ayers?
Aye.
Mr. Alligood?
Aye.
Ms. Strawn?
Aye.
Mr. Ziegler?
Aye.
Ms. Alexander?
Aye.
The motion carries unanimously. Thank you for the patience in going through the process, but as council members identify frequently, sometimes it takes a little longer to get it right, and I think we all have something we can be proud of as we move forward. So good luck on your projects, and thank you again for your investment in our city. Reports and communications, Blue Ridge Resource Authority, Mr. Smith.
No report?
Main Street, Lexington, Ms. Strong.
Just a 2021 year in review. We sold $62,800 in gift certificates. We had $2,600 in signs and awning grants were distributed, and there were 1,200 volunteer hours contributed to make Lexington a better place to live, work, and play. And that's all I have.
62,800.
Yeah.
Wow.
A lot
that's
of gift
terrific.
certificates.
Love those stimulus checks. Planning Commission, Ms. Strawn.
Planning Commission met on Thursday, February 24th, and I will let Arnie give you an update.
Planning Commission held a meeting last Thursday in this room, well attended, I'd say about 50 people. We had a number of folks speak, I think we were in a room of 15, and that was in response to 2 applications by Washington Lee. One was a rezoning for 14 parcels, and one was a campus master plan update. In addition to that, the applicant heard the comments, certainly, and we had a meeting earlier this week, and there's an intention to withdraw the rezoning request for the triangle parcels. I believe there are 12 of those. So in the near future, we'll be getting a comp plan amendment for 12 Lee Avenue, a rezoning for the 3 additional parcels on West Washington and 12 fewer that I just mentioned. And the campus master plan will be resubmitted with the deletion of the 2 things I just spoke about. And also with the deletion of the request to close off McLaughlin Street on occasion when they hold those aerial type functions. And we expect the Planning Commission to be holding a public hearing, or sorry, a work session on the 24th, just with W&L. Their observation was they didn't get a chance to rebut some of the comments, so they would like to just sit down with the Planning Commission and have a quick meeting about just going over their proposal so that they're fully understanding what the proposal is, I guess. So just a chance to rebut some of the comments. And then most likely the next full public hearing will be on April 14th.
Any questions for Arnie? Great report, Leslie. Regional Tourism Board, Mr. Ayers.
Thank you. Tourism won't meet again until the 16th of this month, and since we had the benefit of Jean this evening, I will forego a separate report.
Fantastic. And remind us the time and location of the meetings?
Yes, we meet at the Lexington Visitor Center at 8:30 on Wednesday morning.
Very good. And again, thank you for your tolerance of the water improvement plan with Diamond Hill. That's made it tough for people to get to the visitor center, I can only imagine. I do know how difficult it's been to get to the orthodontist office. Mr. Ziegler, RARO.
So the RARA Board of Directors met last night, and we were formally introduced to a new program coordinator that has joined our staff. Her name is Rebecca Stratton, and so she has worked, she worked in Buena Vista with Parks and Rec, and she's helps coach some local teams, and she went to Southern Virginia University and played softball there. So we're excited to have her on staff, and we are now fully staffed for the first time in actually several years. We recently concluded basketball season. It went really, really well. Wrestling season went really, really well. And we are right into baseball and softball. In fact, we're actually going to take advantage of some nice weather this weekend. You may have gotten alert rock bridges, maybe not, but we're going to have some kind of clinics, some pitching clinics, and then also just some talent assessment clinics. My words, those are not the professional words, but just give an opportunity for the staff to kind of scout out the kids before we make our teams. So it's pretty exciting. We can't wait to get going with baseball and softball season. We talked about a lot in our two-hour meeting, but I will just leave you with the fact that we will be soon advertising Pickleball 101. And so that is something that has long been a goal of RARO. There's a thriving club in the community already, the Rockbridge Pickleball Club, but we're going to not take that over by any means, but we're going to offer Pickleball 101 just as an offering for folks that want to learn about pickleball and take advantage of that great game. So that concludes my report. But you all are welcome to join us the first Wednesday of every month at 6 o'clock in the community meeting room in City Hall. We meet from 6 until everyone
Till you get her done.
gets tired.
With the pickleball, where will the 101, where the courts, where will that be? Do you know?
We've talked about multiple locations, gosh, and you know what? I'm not going to have the exact location off the top of my head right now.
No problem. We'll stay tuned.
It'll be in the advertisement, but
Terrific.
we're working to get a permanent location, but we're on it.
Thank you, sir. Threshold, Ms. Alexander.
Thank you. Threshold met last Wednesday, and we talked about definitely making contact with Virginia Housing Development and having staff make those arrangements to talk to their staff about a workshop that they could possibly offer, and trying to do that by accommodating their schedule and having a workshop during day hours so that it would not affect them as far as having to travel or come here after hours. So of course, it would be by Zoom during the day. And staff will be in contact with our local housing rehab partners to hopefully restart the neighborhood repair request. And we welcomed Ash Mullis, who is our new board member, and we thank you for approving that appointment. And we look forward to another applicant applying very, very soon to accommodate our membership. And thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Alexander. Any questions for Threshold? Hearing none, Maury Service Authority, Mr. Alligood.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Maury Service Authority met at its regular February meeting on Tuesday. That was 2/2/2/2/2. Did I say enough twos? Anyway, the events that occurred at that meeting are interesting. I had been mentioning to City Council regularly about the projected expenditures that are being discussed for modernizing the water plant and the wastewater plant. And that's moving ahead. One of the things that's moving ahead faster right now is the MSA board approved with a cap of $400,000 the engineering studies to be completed within the next 6 to 7 months that will form the actual implementation and the cost schedule for the modernization for only the water treatment plant at this time. The application is being prepared to be submitted for the $20 million loan from that VDAP, HCC, whatever those letters were that I mentioned last time. And there, in that application, the carrot is the potential forgiveness, as I'd mentioned before, of potentially up to, and this is not anything that's cast in stone, 45% of the cost, which is, should that materialize, that's going to put in place a high chance of all of the repairs, all of the modernization to happen quicker than stretching them out as financing becomes available. So that's the big event, and the MSA has a meeting scheduled with City Council and with Rockbridge County supervisors next week. Our City Council meeting is next week, and to discuss this, the modernization and the projections for it, and that meeting will be held at 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock next Thursday. And end of report.
Thank you, Mr. Alligood. Any questions?
Not a question, but I was picked up by a friend on your question, and that Glenroy Park is adding some space for pickleball courts, and also actually Rivermont has some space for 3 courts. But I appreciate the help, Gene.
It's good to have friends. For my report, I'd like to yield my time to the students in the audience to give a statement on the status of democracy in our world today. Just kidding. Welcome. We're glad you're here. If you have any questions from the mayhem that's going on up here, we're available afterwards. But thank you for joining us, and I hope you get an A. With that, I'd like to defer to the city manager for his report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to start out with just giving a few kudos to and progress with the Planning and Building Department, what they've done since the first of the year. Now, first of the year for them statistically is the calendar year. So in this calendar year, thus far, they have issued 38 permits and certificate of occupancies, taken 147 enforcement actions, collected $9,955 in permits and fees, and one of those permits was a $762,000 renovation for a downtown structure. So they've made some good progress already in this calendar year. There's a vaccination clinic or several clinics that are sponsored by the Virginia Department of Health in Richardson Park in the coming months. One will be the 12th, I believe that's a week from this coming Saturday, and that's at 11 to 3 p.m. And one will also be on April 9th at that same time frame. So if you want to walk through the community, from nearby residences or areas, you can walk over to the park and get your vaccine. You don't have to go to a doctor's office or the pharmacy or Kroger's. It's right there in your home area. I think we all heard several weeks ago that there had been a suicide attempt in the regional jail. I will say that that individual has recovered and has been sent to Western State Hospital for observation, and that's the status of it. A relatively good outcome for that incident, if you will. Radar, the Maury Express ridership continues to improve. During COVID, of course, like everything else, there was less activity there. But in this February, ridership is up over 65% compared to 2021. So again, it continues to go up to where those normal levels were. Fire department activities. The transmission on engine 93 unfortunately failed, and the department has purchased a used rebuilt transmission for just under $19,000. Nothing about fire equipment is cheap. The staff has been working with the engineers at Pierce Manufacturing to put in place the specs for the new ladder truck to be purchased this fall, and that entails a lot more work on the front end to get a truck that meets the needs we have in our community. Staff provided CPR and first aid training to all the staff at the Lexington Prescription Center as part of what we do in our community to keep our community safer. The department is also hosting a series of 4 courses designed for new volunteer firefighters. 19 participants from surrounding departments have signed up. Classes will be on Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday, and graduates will become certified firefighters. And this, of course, will help to fill that need for firefighters in the future in our community, whether it's here in the city or in some of our neighboring departments. In the police department, officers spent over 150 hours last month on Thornhill Road and Jordan Street doing traffic enforcement. We have complaints of speeding and other traffic problems, so they were out there doing their work. And during this time, they issued 22 summons. So those are basically citations. And some people just weren't keeping to the speed limit, but they're out there doing their job. Seventh graders from the middle school toured the department and discussed the responsibilities of law enforcement staff while on the field trip to the department. First Sergeant Fitzgerald provided a presentation to faculty and staff at Dabney S. Lancaster on the topic of roles and responsibilities of law enforcement when responding to mental health calls. The speed trailer has been deployed on West McDowell Street, again, because there's always some concerns about speeding, and so we're out there watching. And that is the extent of my report.
Thank you, sir. Members of council have questions for the city manager on his report. Mr. Alligood.
Where do they put it on West McDowell Street?
That I did not ask, sir. I know it is a very small, short street. And it's hard to believe people would complain about speeding there, but apparently somebody has.
Between Jackson and Jefferson.
So they had to squeeze it in.
Tight fit.
Yeah.
Close to the where you enter the back way to the Fiji Fraternity House parking lot. It's down there. And if you try, you can get up to 50. No, just kidding.
I was going to say, my sense is dodging the device, yeah. Potholes in the device, nobody got over 20, so. Thank you for that report. Calling city attorney, Jared.
Got an update on the opioid litigation and settlements. Y'all might have read that Johnson & Johnson and 3 of the major distributors settled one day last week. So they've agreed to $26 billion spread out throughout the country. Apparently things are set up fairly well that the money's going to start flowing potentially to localities by the end of April. So I think, as we've talked about, now they've got the number in the bucket. They've already set up the procedure for once things get in the bucket for distributing it, and this is, I think, going to be the first money we see. The Purdue bankruptcy, the settlement was approved and then disapproved. Now that's just the settlement issue, not the other bankruptcy stuff, has been appealed to the Second Circuit of Appeals, so that's still through the appellate process. I did see some negotiations with Purdue the Sackler family was offering to up their contribution, but we'll see how that shakes out. But I don't think, practically speaking, as you all know, once things get into litigation and appeals and multiple levels of appeals, things can take a while. But the good news is we should expect some amount of money to start coming in within the next month or two. That's all I have in terms of report. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Members of council have any questions? Do we have the option to take payment in Bitcoin? Just kidding.
I think we'll get a 12-pack of Narcan. I think that would be our...
Indeed. Thank you for that report and update. Look forward to the disbursement and putting those dollars to good use. Next item is new business, consideration of deed of purchase on the VDOT property. Who's jumping on that? Jared?
So this is a bit of a formality when municipalities accept a deed of conveyance by statute. The governing body has to vote to accept it either by resolution or some other mechanism. So we just put it as a resolution. I do think it's helpful in this case that unbeknownst to Jim or I, VDOT had put in the deed, not in any sort of agreement, but put in the deed the clause that if we sell the property to someone within 2 years, then we split any profit with VDOT. When I asked the Attorney General, I was like, where did this come from? VDOT said, well, we just think that's fair. So I think it's a little bit sort of bad faith for them to insert something that significant in the deed at the final stage of the process. But I leave it up to you guys to determine or decide if y'all want that to derail the process. I think if we push back, they would probably give up on the issue, but it is in there. So certainly worth considering, but otherwise I think, it's just a matter of Jim and I signing it. We've got a copy of the sales agreement for the underground storage tanks, which I mentioned a couple weeks ago. So I think from our perspective, other than finding out when we're going to send the money to the state, once things are signed, assuming you guys approve this, once things are signed either tomorrow or Monday, we'll mail that all down to Richmond and wait to hear back from them.
Was there any language if we sold it within 2 years for less than we paid for it?
No, they did not offer to contribute to
Okay.
make up any difference.
Just checking. Thank you for that report and presentation. Council, I'd ask for your consideration, and we can have further discussion.
Jim, do you have a recommendation on that language? I mean, if that's something that council should ask Jared to go back and have a bigger problem with?
No, I would not ask for anything in that nature. If we do well and sell it for more, then we'll take our cut and they'll get their cut. And if we happen to negotiate something that approximates the purchase price, then hopefully everyone's satisfied at that point.
I move to approve Resolution 2022-03, a resolution accepting a deed of conveyance from the Commonwealth of Virginia Department of Transportation.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Mr. Alligood.
Sale price, what are we spending?
In $659,000. It's in the packet, yes. That was the agreed upon price from the appraisals. Any further discussion? If not, ask for a roll call vote. Mr. Smith? Aye. Mr. Alligood?
Aye.
Mr. Ziegler?
Aye.
Mr. Ayers?
Aye.
Ms. Strawn?
Aye.
Ms. Alexander?
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. What a long journey it's been, but carry us through to the finish line, and we look forward to owning it for a very brief time, if at all possible. We do have a closed session scheduled, and before Ms. Alexander reads this in, I want to thank everyone again for joining us. We do not plan to take any action after our closed meeting, so you're welcome to stay. We will reconvene and adjourn the meeting in public, but we do not plan to take any action. And with that, Ms. Alexander, if you'll read us in.
I move that Lexington City Council will convene in a closed meeting in accordance with Section 2.2-3711, subsection A, paragraph 3 of the Code of Virginia, a closed session for the purpose of discussing the disposition of real estate for a public purpose.
Second.
Thank you for the second. We'll have a roll call vote. Ms. Strawn?
Aye.
Mr. Smith? Aye. Mr. Ziegler?
Aye.
Mr. Ayers?
Aye.
Mr. Alligood?
Aye.
And I vote aye. We'll move into closed session. Thank you.